Good morning. I haven't done one of these in a while, and I thought it was time to kind of reach out to folks and kind of continue, I guess, what my mission is, which is to help people get past their trauma, their darkness, help them to hopefully, move into a different space, a better space, a happier and safer space. In past videos, I talked about how I would start talking a little bit more about my experience, which includes the trauma that I experienced when I was younger, which created the person that existed before I healed from that. And so I'm going to talk about some of that stuff briefly, and I'm going to talk about kind of what it means and why it meant what it was. So, I know everyone has their own experiences with trauma. Some have a lot, some have a little. I felt like I got I felt like I ran the gambit as a kid. Um, I had a lot of different things. I got it, I got it as most of us do from both sides of the family. One side of the family, growing up, I was pretty much invisible. And the other side of the family, the way they dealt with emotions and love was just negative teasing. Like no matter what you did that was good, there was always something negative or nasty to say. I don't know if that was because they just couldn't understand how to really share love, or if that was just because that was just the what they were used to as far as their experience. So that started me off. You know, I shared how, my father left pretty early and really wasn't a part of my life for a long time. And that gave me some real father issues, some real abandonment issues that I had to deal with. And then post that, as I've also shared before, some of it, I was raped and molested as a child for almost 10 years. What I haven't shared, or what I didn't share, is I actually was raped by a second person, a second man that, I it's just part of the overall traumatic experience in my life. So um, that created a person that had a lot of darkness. That's how the ego really took over. By the time I got into school, being raised by a single mom, we didn't have a whole lot, and I was a prime candidate to be bullied, and I was bullied like in ways that I can't even describe, and it was awful. And it wasn't just kids. I mean, it was getting pushed around, beat up. Uh, at one point, when I started to try to find myself in high school, and I decided to put a lot of effort into being an athlete and playing football, and I told coaches what I wanted to do. They even laughed at me. It's a shame. When I tell you all this, though, I tell you this because it's not that I want you to feel pity for me. It's that it's just an explanation to show how much darkness was created in Tony, that the person that used to exist in this body, and how much pain and sadness and hurt, and why that man did the things that he did. They weren't all bad. I'm not here to knock him. In fact, I've already honored him in the past, because I understand why he was the man he was, and what he was trying to protect, what he was trying to defend. Um, I think that, when you consider all the things that happened, that's where, I posted a long time ago about shadow work or soul loss, that I say your soul leaves your body, because it's just not a place for it to inhabit. And I truly feel like that's what happened to me. I know a lot of people, they talk about their trauma, and I guess what I would tell you is this: my mind, Tony's mind, is a brilliant mind, very intelligent man, high IQ, a lot of common sense, uh, and all of that ability for logic and to think things out. You can't think your way out of trauma. You can't talk your way out of trauma. It exists. You just have to learn how to live with it and what you're going to do to live with it. And I had no idea that when I decided to do EMDR, and I was able to release a lot of that energy, negative energy and that negative emotion from my body. I had no idea what was going to happen or how that was going to affect me. But it affected me in such a way that I literally am a different person. Everything that Tony was, Anthony is not. That's why I chose to change my name. And, I know a lot of people have a hard time with that. I've had a hard time with it for a while, understanding and seeing the difference, almost like waking up in a body and not really knowing it. But it's nothing that I would ever in my life choose to go back to. Tony did great things because he needed validation. He did great things because he wanted attention. He hated himself, and he did everything he could to try to prove himself and validate himself to the world. And that's not a great existence. When you look in the mirror and you hate what you see, when you can't reconcile all the things that happen and you can't let it go, no matter how much you accept it, it's just something that it causes the darkness to come up. Now, that person was, when people do therapy, I think there's this belief that people do change over time as to who they are, but that's not my experience. My experience is I literally became a different person almost overnight. Once all that darkness was released, it just opened up for my soul to come in, and all this light came flooding into me, and I was a different man at that point. I didn't have the darkness in me anymore. I didn't have to prove myself, or I didn't hate everybody. All of a sudden, I went from a man who had embraced the darkness and was aggressive and competitive and wanted to be the best and wanted to prove himself and had to validate himself in relationships, to a man that truly loves all human beings, truly is light, positive, happy, loves himself. These are all things that happened to me just almost literally overnight. And so it's different. It's difficult to explain to people that journey. It's difficult to, I think it's difficult for a lot of people, even people who knew me before, to understand that difference in who I am. In some cases, even accept the difference in who I am. The best way I can describe it is Tony was this huge ego, and when I dealt with the trauma, the negative energy, that ego was immediately shattered, and what was left was something a lot more pure. And it's interesting because there's a meme on Facebook talks about what would it be like if you turned up your your magic to full. And that one's a tough one because, the man that I am, I don't even show everybody everything because I think it's hard for people to accept that I am who I am. I think that even people I lived with, I think, thought that I was hiding something or had an ulterior motive, that there's no way that a man could be happy and love everyone and want nothing but the best for everyone and cared for people, and that's not possible, they thought. However, if they had really known the man before that, and what steps I had to do for that man to go away and for me to be here, I think it would make a lot more sense. It's interesting that, I going through having to face that trauma, having to face that energy. It was a difficult experience. It was very dark. March 2 years ago was an extremely dark time for me, and I'm blessed that my soul had strength and gave me the strength to move past it. So it's interesting when I tell people that now I'm connected with my soul, and that has only happened in the last probably 8 or 9 months, and then I realize I'm not my mind. I think it's hard for them to understand that concept. I think it's hard for them to understand what that means. And I tell people I try to stay out of my mind as much as possible because it's icky up there. I woke up to being really empathic. When I talk to people, I can feel their happiness. I can feel their sadness. When I go in and try to these memories that I have of Tony, I can feel his pain. I don't want to be in there. I don't want to feel those things. It doesn't feel good. It's icky. So I don't want to be in there. I do have those memories, and more importantly, I get to, I have the ability or whatever to tap into the emotions that he felt at that time. They weren't good emotions. Sometimes that's a that's a curse, but it's interesting because the darkness is gone, but because it was there, I know what it is. I could relate to it. I mean, if I really, if it was in my soul's best interest for me to tap into that darkness, I mean, I'm sure it's quite possible. It's part of my human experience, but it's nothing I want. It's nothing that I would desire. The only way I would ever tap into that is if I was in a position that that myself or someone that I loved was not safe, and I had no other choice. Other than that, it would not be something I would ever choose for myself. And it's nothing I choose for any of you. So that's why I continue to do these videos. It's not for me necessarily. It's not to get your attention. It's not for you to say, oh, look at him, look at him. Those are all ego things. It's really to hopefully help. Hopefully my soul can speak to your soul, and it can wake something up in you to say, this man was able to do it. With all the trauma that he had, that means that I have the ability to do it. It's interesting. So many things have happened, and, for me to be able to look in the mirror every morning and go, God, you are such a beautiful soul, and I love you. And thank you for releasing me from that prison. Thank you for allowing me to be here for the rest of my life. And understanding that I want that for everybody else. That's the gift that I have to offer. I'm always here. I know some of you reach out sometimes. I'm always here to talk. I will always encourage you. I know sometimes, I've mentioned this one in the past. There's a saying also about some people just don't want to deal with their trauma because they're afraid of who they'll be when it's gone. I can tell you that I was likely that person at one point. Now that that it's gone, like I said, I would never want to go back and be that man again. He did great things. He really did, from a human perspective, from a human journey, from the things that we look at people that they do. He did a lot of really great things. But I feel like the things that I can do and the things that I have to offer are much greater than anything he could have imagined. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think I've definitely shared enough. I know I share a lot of these on Facebook. I may open up a YouTube channel and talk about this just to kind of give a different format. I don't, it's not that I'm afraid or anything like that. I don't mind my friends knowing these things about me, and I don't mind talking about them or sharing them. Certainly Tony had issues with it, but I do not. Anything that I can offer to help people on their journey, to help people find happiness, to help people grow, to help people to find their purpose, I definitely, I'm called for that. So I definitely appreciate all those who watch these and listen and respond. I try not to judge things as good or bad, but the truth is it is good. It does feel good to hear, people listen to this message and how it can help them. So thank you for that gift. You all honor me when you do that, and I very much appreciate it. I just wanted to let you know I love you all very much, and I'll reach out again in the future. Blessings to you.